Okay, so yeah, we would like to have a little overview about the rule-based access control, RBAC, and a little bit more from Intune perspective, because we know how it works in Config Manager. And I step in on customers every time and ask them, do you have some rule-based access or profile-based access for your Intune environment? I said, no, everyone is global admin. Okay, that's a good answer, but not the right answer, to be honest, because everyone is a global admin. It's a really dangerous situation, because if someone is phished or whatever, get credentials and you don't have MFA enabled, it's pretty easy to use your tenant as for fun or for bad things. So, and that's why I came up with this session. So first of all, thank you, Jürgen, for the introduction. Yes, I am a workplace sommelier because I'm a beer brewer and a diploma beer sommelier from Switzerland and also from worldwide. So, and that's why I also create my own beer at home. We will see that in the afternoon session a little bit more about the brewing process, how it works and stuff like that. And yeah, let's go forward. So in Intune, there are just a few simple clicks that you can enable in your environment just to have it a little bit more secure. So first of all, you can enable MFA. I don't show you how to enable MFA and how to use it. That could be a very interesting separate session for that topic, but I will show you just a few settings. That's why I just jump to my lab in here and show you here. Now I am connected to an RDP session. In my tenant, I already logged on with Mirko at schulvision.peer. That's my tenant for just testing, and Mirko is a global administrator. So first of all, I have created a test account. I go to Azure Active Directory and show you just the test account. With that I will work for. Hopefully Azure is a little bit faster than last week. So here we go with all the user, and I created a test user. So just that you can see, this test user has no membership. It's not assigned to any roles in Azure Active Directory. It's just a regular user, and he has no rights. The only thing that I have added to this user is license, that he has access to my Intune for Education tenant. So when I go and log in with that user, you can see as a standard user, regularly the standard user has access to regularly the user uses Office 365 to access for the portal. But if he accidentally adds like portal.azure.com, oops, try again, and then he will stay or has the permissions to access to our Azure tenant and see completely anything in the first row, because now he can have a look on like virtual machines and stuff like that. And in Azure Active Directory, for example, do you remember, this is just a regular user with no rights, huh? First of all, he can see a lot of information because he can see users, and of course he can't change like passwords for this user. For that it needs a separate role, but he can see like the information from my global administrator and all the information from other users like telephone numbers, email settings, whatever, just with read rights. So Of course, he can't change, but he can also maybe do a password reset. But that's not really a good option. He's just, okay, it's not possible because he has no rights for that. That's okay. So, but he can see any information. So to just hide that stuff, I will sign out with this user, going back to my Mirko tenant administrator. For that, I go back to my Azure Active Directory, and there are just a few simple settings that I can enable. In the user settings blade, I can go and say administration portal, restrict access to Azure AD administration portal. I say yes, and we'll save this setting. And there are some other settings like external user. There is also an important setting to do, like this is the default values, like guest users permission are limited. No, okay, I will do that. Admins and users in the guest invite role can invite. Yes, that's okay, because they are in the inviter role, right? And members can invite. No, that's not a good idea. And other guests can invite a lot more guests. No, I don't like to do that. So with these basic settings, I save this, and I saved the other one before. And going back. So here, it's already saved. So I go back and log in with my test user. So now it looks a little bit different in the whole thing. So now when I go with my regular user to Azure Active Directory, it looks a little bit different. He can still see all the information. Not really, no access. Huh? So just with one simple click for the administration portal, you decline access to see anything in Azure Active Directory. And in my view, this is a really simple click and a really important one. So we want to go back to the presentation. And in the presentation, we have RBAC. So this is the basic design of RBAC. RBAC is like basically the same that you have in Config Manager for rule-based access management. You decide a member group that will be the managers of something. Then you have some roles, Intune role, Intune administrators, you can create your own role. Then you have some scope tags that you can tag anything that should be accessible for this special role. And then we have a scope group. The scope groups are users or computers where are targeted to manage. So this is a little bit confusing sometimes. And additionally, we have also in preview in Intune administrative units. Administrative units, you can get together and build your role, scope tag, and scope group to one big unit. For example, you can say, okay, I have some administrators in Asia, and they have to organize compliance settings or configuration profiles for my Intune devices, or it's based on region, or you can also use it as department, or if you are a university, if you have some different buildings, in one building is the library and stuff like that. So you can delegate them the administrative rights of special groups to manage those. So, but I don't like to cover that because first of all, you have to understand the basics for this one. And the basics are some confusing sometimes because now we have all the different things like scope tags, member groups, scope groups, and then the role. And with those, you have to do an assignment and set all pieces together. That's a little bit complicated in a view of or how to manage it, because Microsoft is really great to place stuff on different areas in the portals, and maybe they come up with a new portal, but this is pretty easy. So if you are familiar with the management of groups or roles in Azure Active Directory, for example, I will just change back to my lab. Share you my lab. So now you should see my lab again. So here I go back to my administrative user. So if I am still in the Azure Active Directory blade, we have here roles and administrators in preview. So here you can basically manage in an overview of all your tenant possibilities, like application developer, application administrators. Those two has not really much to do with Intune alone. Those are like web developers. They basically develop a web application and stuff like that. And here we have also Intune administrators. So for the Intune administrators, those are like global admins with delegation on only in Intune to have the full control of all the Intune settings and roles and stuff like that. There are some other administrators that you can have. So in here, you can also add a custom role. But to add this custom role, it needs an Azure Active Directory Premium P2 license to create your custom roles. Otherwise, you can only use the regular roles in here. So this is just the overview from the hierarchy. If we have our Azure tenant on top and then we use the service Intune below, we will go and restrict those informations on the Intune area itself, because for that we have to go to Intune. And here in Intune, you have a similar kind of role that you can see here, all roles, and in the all roles there are also some built-in roles, and you can create your own. So I switch back to my slides to explain you a little bit before we start here. Okay, what we need or what we have to have first, because it's really confusing, like runabout like this, and we are first of all have to create scope tags. So scope tags are basically tagging a little piece of something in your environment. This can be a device, this can be a user, this can be a group of users or a group of devices, and it also can be like settings, like I have some different conditional access settings, and I can tag every single setting by itself. It's the same as you have also, or you know maybe from SCCM or Config Manager. And it's like basically is nothing else as tagging a key to access your house. So that means this key has access or is the key holder of your house front door, or maybe also the garage if you have a bypass during the garage and stuff like that. So with that tag, you give access to something. Huh? Okay, so then we can tag devices, but this is no more possible. At the moment, you only can tag groups, no more devices. So this setting, what you can see here on the print screen, is gone, and there is a new message displayed. That's the blue, the light blue, to auto-assign scope tags to devices, go to role scope tags, assign scope tag to a device in a selected group. the scope tag will override the assignment list in this section. So this is no more possible that you have to select or scope tagging your every single device. It's only possible to using a group, an Azure Active Directory group that you have to create first, and then you can tag all the devices in this group. So for that, we can, for example, build a group, scope group. Scope group is not the same as we have here before. Scope tag on a device. So this scope tag is only on a group within the devices, and the tag will go down to the devices itself. So scope group is a different story. Scope group is users or the devices you like to managing. So like, for example, we can create a group of Windows devices, all Windows devices. We can create a group of Android devices. We can create a group of like marketing folks, or we can also create a group of Intune administrators, but that's a different story. So just to clarify, I will switch back to my lab, because now we have to create some groups and also scope tags before we go to the next step. I will switch this one to my lab again. So here we are back at the labs. So first of all, in Intune, you can see you have in the Intune roles, you have also scope tags. And there is only the default scope tag. So now we have to create. For that, we need an example. So my example or my use case is I'm a school, and I would like to give teachers the possibility to wipe devices from specific classrooms. So for that, I create a scope tag to tag those devices and also tag the settings that are possible for those users. So first of all, I create a scope tag. We call it classroom devices. Okay, that's my scope tag. I say next, and then I can also assign this scope tag, but I don't need that yet because I will do that in the end. And then we will have create. So now we have our classroom devices. Oops, there is a typo. Just correct that. Classroom devices. So we go edit. So you all the time you have the possibility to go back and change naming and stuff like that, right? Okay, so we save it. And now we go back to Intune. And now we create a group. For that we go to the groups and say I have a lot of groups already in my test environment because it's I imported the test information from Contoso and Fabric ARM and stuff like that, but I will create a new one. So, and for that new one I will make it dynamically because I will manage all the Windows devices. Or if I have shared devices for a specific classroom, I can assign those or group tagging and ask the group tag for dynamic and stuff like that, right? Okay, so I give it the name and say this is classroom. We call it, when we write it correct, classroom of Sweden. Okay, then we have not an assignment, so we would like to dynamic query, and we make just a simple query for this example. I would like to add all Windows devices. This is pretty basic query because you can go and choose a property, and the property will be, whoops, the property will be device OS version, and then we use the operator it contains, and then we add this as an expression. Okay, this is our query for all Windows devices. Say save, and then we create this group. So now we have in here a group, a classroom. The classroom, it's called Sweden, and all those devices should be in this classroom. So just have a look on the group itself, what members we have. Now it should have some members, Windows devices. Okay, so here, whoops, it needs a little bit time because for the query in the backend. So we let that run in the background. So now we created a scope group, and we also created the the scope tag. So back to the slides. Okay, so to remember, scope groups are a group of people or devices adding to manage those, or both. So, but you can't mix, or it's not a good idea to mix. Keep it separate. If you create groups, for example, you have your classroom devices, and you have a degree class, like for the 4th degree, and they have maybe more than one class. You have ABC, for example. Just create for every single class students a group itself to manage those, if you would like to do those, to manage those separately. Okay, so the next is we have a member group. The member group is basically the members who should have the possibility to manage those devices. So the member groups, basically the administrators. The administrator group that has the possibility to get a role in Intune, to have the management part, like those are can create some other conditional access policies or configuration settings or whatever. So as the next part, we have the role itself. So the role itself, we can use the standard built-in roles from Intune, or we can create our own group. This is possible without any additional licensing, as you have for the for the Azure Active Directory roles. Here in Intune itself, it doesn't need any separate licensing. You just can create it. So, and the role is like a job profile. If you are a help desk administrator, or you are a group of teachers that would like to have the access to wipe devices and stuff like that. So in here, we can create this. This is a little bit the old screenshot, to be honest, because Microsoft changed that to the new overview in the portal. And I will show you that now, when we go back to the lab, to the portal. So in here, we are still have our group. So now we have to create first our administrative group. So, and our administrative group will be, so we just created the classroom group for the devices to manage, and now we create the new group for the teachers that have the possibility to manage those. Like we call it Sweden teachers has the possibility to manage all the devices in the Sweden classroom, for example. And here I do an assignment, because I would like to add the members directly, because I have maybe 1 or 2 teachers only for this classroom, and only those 2 teachers should have the possibility to manage those devices. So in my example, I have a look on my test user account that I used before. Test user, okay, that's my test. I select, then I create my group with my teacher in it. So it takes a few seconds. So with that, our test user has not really more rights at the moment. Next part is I go back to Intune, back to the roles, and now I create my own role. So add all roles, I go ahead and say create. So here we need a name for the role. I say Sweden Classroom Managers. So I say next. Then the permission, select the category below. So I would like to go and say, okay, in the remote task, I give those teachers the possibility, like for cleaning PCs, for example, because we use shared PC or whatever. And in the very end, I will give him the right to wipe those devices. Say yes, okay. Then I say, that's my right that I want to give to my teacher. I say next. And now to this role, I can also add a scope tag that, for example, specific administrators in our Intune tenant can manage this role, for example. So we skip that because I don't need that yet. I have a really flat hierarchy. And here I have the permission, remote task, clean PC, and wipe. So now I go ahead and create this role. So now I have created all the specific pieces that I need. I go back to my slides and show you here. We have now anything created together, and now we have to do the assignment. With the assignment, it looks really fancy in this screenshot, because it is fancy. You have now pick all the pieces together and add every single management in this assignment. But where is this assignment? And additionally, you have also administrative units. I will come back to that a little bit later if you have some time left. So here I go back to my lab, and now in my lab I have to bring the pieces together. So here I have my Sweden Classroom Manager. I open this custom role, and now on the role, based on the role, I can do, or I can see the properties, right? And here I have the assignments. So, and with the assignment, I can use this role multiple times with different assignments. So that's a huge benefit, because I create this role once and can use it multiple times. So maybe I have some other like Switzerland teachers, I have French teachers, I have Finnish teachers, etc., etc. And for that case, I can use multiple times the same role with different assignment. But for an assignment, I have to create all the groups and scope tags that I just created before. So come on. So now I give it a name. This is for so I give it a big name because it's more obvious for me to use that information or see that information. So then I have, first of all, the admin groups. And the admin groups, admin group users are the administrator assigned to this role. So, okay, that will be the group of the teachers for my Swedish teachers. So just have a look on this group, Sweden teachers. I say select, okay, next. So at the next, I can use a scope group. As a scope group, I have all users, all devices and stuff like that. The scope group is basically the group with the devices I like to manage, or the group of users that I like to manage. So for that, I go to selected groups, and here I have my classroom, my Sweden classroom with all my Swedish devices. Say select. So, and now I go to scope tags and add my scope tag that I created. So it takes a minute. Show me my scope tag. So I have the classroom devices with a scope tag. Say OK. And now I have an overview to bring all the pieces together. So now I create this assignment, and basically I can go back and change the assignment anytime. So for that, I just forgot a little piece. In the scope tags, I have also on the classroom devices to tag my group, the assignment, because this group of devices I have to manage. So for that, I have to go and select also my devices for the classroom Sweden. Select. If you remember, I just mentioned that because when I go back to the group, so I have to save this first. So, and now when I go back, just to show you, go to my groups, and here in the groups, I have my classroom group, classroom Sweden. So, and here I have the members. So the members are not in there yet, huh? Okay. Okay, so then I have to go back to my Intune, go to the devices, and there are my Windows devices. And I can see all the devices are here. So it should add all those devices or this device to this group. So, and here it was the past setting in the properties. You can see this one here to auto assign the scope. So the scope is no more here, but you can add the scope tag, and you can see one scope tag is selected. If we open this, you can see the classroom devices is here. But before you do the assignment from the scope tag itself, it wouldn't show this little area of scope tags. So this is not visible for regular devices. So when we go back to all devices and we have a look on Azure Active Directory, I'm sorry, I have some other devices. They are not managed. Maybe they are just registered. And here in the properties, you can't see anything. So you can't select those devices. And that's the possible cause for why Microsoft is adding those scope tags to the devices group and not to the devices itself, because you can't tag or scoping a device from here. So I want to go back just to have a double check that my query is the right. Going to my groups and searching for my classroom because it should show my devices in there. So in here, okay, still no devices. Maybe I selected the wrong query. Device OS version. Let me have a look on here. We have device OS type. That should be the right one. So and now we go back to the members. Hopefully they are in there. So now we created anything, and in the meantime I can go to another browser and just log out with my test user because it needs a log off, log on to get the rights. It's not applicable if you just add some rights to the user. So you have really to log off and log on as in the past in your classic Active Directory. And now with the test user, I'm the Swedish teacher and can go to Intune. So in Azure Active Directory, I still can't see anything because I don't have access. Just for give you an overview. So access denied, no access. Okay, in here we go to Intune, and in the Intune portal, this user should now have access. Oh, I just saw in the chat window. Yeah, that's right, because that's why I corrected. So here in the, it should see any devices, because one of those devices or group or whatever, no access. So there is a problem. What I have done wrong. So maybe one in the chat window will figure out what's wrong in here. No? Okay. So my bad was, first of all, before I give access to something that the user can change something, I have to go and give him also read access, that he can read all those devices that are scope tagged or in the scope tag group. Huh? Okay, so what was it? OS version. Okay, those devices are not here. So I go back to Intune, and I have to go back to the roles and add some read rights to my role, because first of all I have to read those devices. So in my Swedish Classroom Manager role, I can go to the properties and change the permissions here. And in the permissions, I will have additional read rights, and those additional read rights should be first of all in the organization, because then I can see all the stuff in the organization. And then I need also read write for managed devices. Otherwise I can't see the devices and I can't wipe the devices, right? And maybe I have some device compliance policy to manage. And in this case, when I just add a scope tag to a device compliance policy, then I have also go and give the user or this role the right to read those information. Otherwise, he can't see it. So in this case, I save the stuff that I just give the read rights down here. Okay, now I go back to my regular user, make a log off and a log on again, because otherwise it wouldn't take the rights. Okay, so now yes. So now when I open Intune, whoops, with this user, he can see, or it's not anymore like grayed out, so I can go to the devices, and now on the devices, I was maybe too fast. So regularly I should see on all devices, the managed devices, and have the access to get it back, to wipe the devices. So here I have device compliant, managed devices, organization, clean up, wipe PC, and scope tag. Yeah, that should be. The assignment is also for the Swedish classroom t-shirt. Just check, double check all settings, device scope, included groups, member groups. Yes, that should be possible. And now let's check the group itself again. There are the devices in this group. So there are some members. So the members are in there now. Okay, maybe I just was too fast to log off and log on again. Let's give it the last try, because we are in the last minute of the session. Otherwise, Jürgen will never get me again as a speaker. So going to the Intune portal. Sometimes it needs a little bit time for replication in the backend, but regularly it's pretty fast, and a log off and a log on again should work basically, but sometimes it can take 5 to 10 minutes. So I hope we are not in that state. But this is also depending. Now you can see I have the overview. I can go to the all devices, and now I should see my device is not in there. Maybe the group synchronization in the backend needs a little bit more time, but regularly it should list my device in here. Maybe I can see the devices that are not Intune managed in here. There is no access. Okay, so yeah, I'm sorry for that, but basically I'm finished with my session. Normally it works just fine. So any question, I guess we can take that outside in a separate chat, or Jürgen, what you are saying for that?
We can stop the recording and take the questions for you. You have some two questions in the chat. So.
Okay. To hide the different menu.